You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Craftsman Days are here at Lowe's with big savings on the tools you need. Right now, get a free select tool when you buy the Craftsman V20 2-pack battery kit. Whether it's the backyard, the bathroom, or beyond, Craftsman has the tools to help you power through and get the project done right. Because DIYing is unpredictable, but your tools shouldn't be. Shop Craftsman at Lowe's today. Valid through 6/18 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Hail cheaters! This was the Always Cheating Podcast. My name remains Josh Landon. I'm here with Brandon Kelly. Brandon Kelly, how are you?
I'm good, Josh. Good to be with you one last time. And here's that sound. Whoa! Right, wow. Almost in your face. I didn't exercise good cork popping.
You were not supposed to point that in someone's face. It's future reference.
So for those of you who have not been paying attention, this is the final, not the final episode of the season, but the final episode of Always Cheating. And here we are pouring a bottle of Veuve Clicquot provided by Kate, Josh's lovely wife. And before we get started, let's just cheers to our spouses, the sports widows of the world.
That's true. Yeah, they get their Sundays and Thursdays back. Yeah. Oh, I guess I should shout out. My wife has a book coming out too, right? We should.
No free ads.
Yeah. So that is coming out. We have a copy of it here.
I see one over here.
All right, there we go. This is totally unplanned, but you know what? It's kind of a loose and shaggy pop.
Right here. If you're listening and you are looking to get into book writing and get your book published, Kate McKean, your wife, who is a literary agent, has written a great how-to book on how to do that.
That's right. And you kind of contributed to the design a little bit too. So,
me and Kate worked on her what do you call it? Substack together, and her publishers worked that into the cover, which is very cool. Yeah. But enough about Kate. We're here to celebrate us. We're going to run through game week 38 because FPL is what has brought us all together. But being the final episode, Josh, we kind of talked about paying homage to not us, but the podcast. And we'll tell the story of the podcast from its birth to its life. And to
strap in, people. 5-6 hour podcast to go. No, I think we should start with proper FPL first, right? Game week 38, final league stuff. Yeah. Our teams, to the extent that anyway. Right. The problem is no one really cares once game week 38, is over about your team, right? It's like no one barely cares about someone else's fantasy team during the season, let alone.
And the vibe. So just to put you in the Black Horse this morning in Brooklyn, where we had a great crew. Thank you to everyone who came out to the Black Horse and said hello and watched the games. There's a point at which you basically become so overwhelmed by the matches happening and you don't know where to focus your energy. People are cheering and you're like scanning all the TVs. Well, which game has the goal happening?
Right.
And there were stakes in a lot of the different screens.
That's true. Weirdly, the loudest person was this performatively loud Arsenal supporter who was sitting behind me, who I respect him, but it was like he was so loud. I was like,
But what did he have to cheer for? What was he loud about?
He was when Kieran Tierney scored. He stood up and clapped. He was credit to him. I mean, a nice farewell match for Kieran Tierney, I suppose. Subbed off early.
But kind of to your point of game week 38, I think a lot of depending on where you are in your mini leagues, you can struggle to find the hook to keep you watching the TV, and that's what I really love about watching game week 38 with a bunch of people is. You could just chit chat.
Yeah.
So it was good catching up with everybody. And you had a blockbuster game week 38.
I did. Yeah. It was kind of, it was excellent. I had nothing to play for, and so I basically made a luxury transfer right before the deadline. I went for Evan Nilsson. I took out Cunha. So kind of a wash. I don't think Cunha got the assist on that goal. Did he? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it was a big fat blank for Mr. Cunha.
Yeah. So that, so in the end, that didn't really matter, but it was kind of all these other unsung heroes, right? Jared Bowen, once again, with a goal and an assist.
What an end to the season for Gerard.
Yeah, amazing. I had Semenyo, so that was really big as well. And even... and then I was Salah scoring that goal at the end too, and then getting the bonus was sort of enough. I ended up I finished on my best rank of the season. If the season had been, 45 weeks long, I think I might have caught up with you. I needed 7 more weeks to do it, but it is nice to end on a high note for sure. And even though we're ending the pod, we're not ending playing fantasy, or we still plan to do mini leagues and join other mini leagues and be part of that whole world. And so it's just that we just won't be talking about it on Sunday evenings anymore, right?
Yeah, FPL doesn't stop. It's just that the Josh and Brandon check-ins on this podcast will stop.
Yeah,
I had a less than stellar, but an average game week 38, which my season kind of started petering out around game week 35 and leaves me at least on the top 150K. I finished on 145, 601. Okay. Certainly better than my last 2 seasons. So I'll take that. We got to be moving in the right direction. I tried to take a bit of a swing, and this is debatable of what kind of swing it was, but I captained Ollie Watkins at about of making up the 40K that I needed to get into the top 100K. Yeah. And the Emi Martinez red card really kind of squashed that plan. Yeah. And the one thing I did have to play for was in some random cash league, and the guy I was up against had Salah captained and Semenyo, and I just got roundly rejected, swatted.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I were to try to contextualize the whole season for me, it's funny. I feel a little bit like Arsenal in that I had a lot of opportunities in this 24-25 season to push on and be solidly in the top 100K. And it's easy to think about all of the things that I missed and got wrong to prevent that from happening. And then what ends up happening is you lose sight of all the good things, all the good decisions that I made along the way that actually made this a better season than the 2 previous. So I just want to kind of keep that in mind. I mean, for you jumped 100,000 spots in game week 38. How does that salvage the season for you?
I wouldn't say it salvages anything, if only because I guess I care more about mini leagues than I do about overall rank, and I ultimately didn't finish in any kind of win, place, or show spots, in any of those. So, so I wouldn't. But I don't know. I don't want to be negative either. I mean, I feel like I ended on what I consider to be a positive note. I'll take that. Did you have any thoughts on the matches themselves? I mean, I felt like it was a little disappointing how the Forest match ended. It felt like there might have been. It just felt like they kind of had nothing left. It was all Chris Wood. It felt like no one else was really able to generate any kind of serious pressure. A long guy didn't think it was as involved as he'd been in recent weeks. It was just kind of a tough match for them. I mean, congrats to Chelsea supporters, I suppose.
Yeah, congrats to Chelsea, fair enough. But with Forest being the home team and that match, you would think that
a win would have gotten them in the end. It would have been enough.
It would have been enough. Yeah. And I think you're going to be really disappointed. It seems crazy that Forest now in Europe, even though it's the Conference League, that they'll be disappointed with this season. Again, the theme, I guess, is just missed opportunities. But between Aston Villa and Forest, I do think those are teams that really had everything at their disposal to make it work The cops agree with me.
Yeah.
So I think Forest and Villa get lumped into the same conversation for game week 38, and that was also just incredibly. I wasn't paying as close of attention to the Villa Man United match because it was on the far outside of the room, but I was trying to keep an eye on Ollie Watkins as my cap. And so, how much does the Emi Martinez red card just totally change that match versus was Aston Villa just never going to be in it?
It didn't feel, I don't know. It felt like it was kind of, because that red card happened near halftime.
Yes.
Right. And so it wasn't like they were taking it to, maybe before then.
It was all just a conspiracy to make the Asensio loan just like more moot than it has been. Like he got subbed off at halftime.
Looks so good at the first few weeks.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I don't know. Manchester United. So today is also then defined by the recent classic top 5 teams in Manchester United and Chelsea who they just got away with it in different ways. Like Chelsea got away with it by now being in 4th place and being in the Champions League.
Right.
It's by kind of like almost screwing it up. And then Manchester United after the Europa League final, total joke.
Yeah.
They've had a joke season, and then they're just like, LOL, sorry, Aston Villa, we're going to ruin all your hopes and dreams.
I think that
meaningless result for them.
Newcastle, I think, was they're probably one of the best teams the second half, and so I feel good about them. The Chelsea one, I will say they were sort of they're almost flying a little under the radar the second half of the season. It felt like they were, they were putting together a bunch of kind of stodgy 1-0 wins, and they weren't quite blowing anyone away. And I think we all focus on the Cole Palmer from a kind of fantasy point of view, but from an actual Premier League point of view, Chelsea were actually kind of getting the job done pretty efficiently down the stretch. It just wasn't sexy, right? They were not like 4-0ing their way to matches, to match wins. It was just sort of like a lot of cucarea. Really,
they became a defensive squad, and then
it worked though.
Well, what's his face? The central defender gets the goal today for Chelsea. Caldwell.
Yep.
So they really are a defensive team.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
Yeah. Levi. Yeah, exactly. So I know. And if he doesn't score that, maybe there's a world. The problem is Forest were in a position at the end where they had to score twice. And I think that was really, it's very hard to score twice in a situation like that where the other team really, is just strongly incentivized to, it's like a World Cup match, right? There's just a lot of keep away that's happening down the stretch. And so, and I think that was kind of really the only match that truly mattered. The Liverpool match had more fun than I was expecting, and nice solid goal at the end.
Yeah, he clearly enjoyed that, and he enjoyed hamming it up with the cop end, and good for him, and player of the season. And I think Trent had some really great moments with the trophy presentation. He should
have started. I feel like as a tribute to him, he should have started. All the good he's done for that club.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I do think at the end there are enough images of Trent connecting with the fans and connecting with the team and the trophy that's what people will remember. So
sure.
So he was there.
He was there. Yes. So why don't we do
Hinchelwood? I do just want to shout out. This is basically
the Hinchel brace.
We knew to get out of the content creation game before the epoch of Hinchelwood.
That's true.
I just don't know how to talk about him in a way that really meets where he is as a footballer.
The new Vokes, the new Sorloth. We don't know what we're getting from Hinchelwood down there. Yeah, that's true. I mean,
Hinchel Will, I think, is what we call him now. It's no longer a question.
Bracelwood, we should call him. Yeah, exactly. So, I love Brighton just ending in the most Brighton way. I mean, I feel like the last 20 games of the season, they could win, lose, or draw with literally any team in the Premier League. It was fascinating. So let's do a quick read off of the our league winners, Brandon. In the always cheating Super League, our kind of core league, which I guess we'll keep running. Why not? Right?
Absolutely.
20,000 people in there. It's still a very hard league to win, and if you want to stay in there, then just don't leave it. That makes it that easy. Let's renew it. But in 10th, we have Brian Ruger. A little bit of drama down the stretch. It was actually a very swingy game week 38. I was surprised. Jake Poplawski, who ended up winning, held on, but a lot of people shot up, including in our Patreon league, where Brian, I thought he was going to run away with it and lost right at the death. So in 10th, Brian Ruggiero. In 9th, Daniel Kim. In 8th, Ignaz Vrobo. In 7th, Ruben Skov. In 6th is Liam Chivers. In 5th is Yusuf El Baida. In 4th is Rauno Rutel. 3rd is Ben McLaughlin. 2nd is Elper Ursoy. It's like Elper Paxoy. Remember Elper Paxoy?
I do remember Pelkster.
Yeah. And then in first is Jake Poplawski. Jake, congratulations on a fantastic season. Jake, if you would like anything of your choice from the Always Cheating shop, just message us. You can email hailcheaters@gmail.com or message us on our website or on any social media, although I really am only checking Blue Sky, so maybe that one. Shoot us a note, and we'd be happy to send you something. Congrats to you. And then in the Always Cheating Patreon League, I'll just do the top 5 here, but congrats to Eli Lindsay. In 5th, 4th is Jimmy Norland. 3rd, Mikey Ewong. 2nd, FPL USA Brian, our podcast buddy. And then right at the very end, Stewie Clark, Brandon.
Wow, Stuart.
Yeah, very impressive. He's never actually told me to call him Stewie, by the way. I just like the idea of
that's fine.
If I was Stuart,
doesn't have a say in this, unfortunately.
If I was a Stuart, I would go by Stewie. That's for sure. But Stuart Clark finished with 80 points. So matched me, Brandon. But he actually won a league. So congrats to him. Stuart, same to you. If you want to get anything of your choice in the Always Cheating shop, just shoot us a message. We'd be very happy to send that out as a thank you or as a congratulations to you. So take a look, Jake and Stuart, and let us know. And then the second half kit winner, Brandon, that was Mike Judson. Now, technically,
some controversy here
because technically the Always Cheating community team entered the although I'm not sure by the bylaws they were allowed to enter the second half.
A bit of a red
league.
Scare happening in the Always Cheating Patreon war. A community oriented organization came in and took the winnings.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think we decided in fairness that the one human who was competing against the deep blue of Always Cheating should be the proper winner. And so Mike Judson, congratulations, Mike. Message us on the Discord or on or send us an email or whatever, and tell us what kit you want. We'll get kits for ourselves as well, so we'll do a trio of kits. I'm looking forward to seeing what you pick. Now, remember the rules, of course, is that they cannot be a Premier League kit. It can be non-league in England. It can be from anywhere else in the world.
Sure, you just want a V-neck jockey T-shirt. I'm fine with that.
Exactly. A nice tri-blend. Whatever you want. But let us know, and we'll get 3 kits.
Yeah. Last but not least, a shout out to Glenn, who won our last Cheater Standing League. Which, if you know, Glenn, that is a huge achievement. Yeah. And your face gets etched into the side of a mountain for winning that.
Yeah. So, Brandon, that is kind of a wrap on the season. And we're only like 15 minutes in.
Well, so I guess before we kind of get to eulogizing the podcast, because we will continue to play FPL as just, managers on the street.
Yeah.
Is there any takeaways from this season for you where you think you're going to apply to the seasons to come, learnings, strategies that you wish you would have deployed, strategies you used that didn't work?
Yeah. Well, I think that saving transfers I think the ability to save transfers is a great change to the game. It is not a change that helps my particular managerial style. I think I was actually quite ultimately kind of hurt by it. Yeah. Not that I don't think I would have had a great season regardless, but I think that the kind of people who have the patience to sort of weather the storm. I think just basically, when in doubt, hold your transfer is a strategy that I don't think I fully considered how important it would be until we got into the second half of the season, where managers like our friend Dave were just they could weather any storm because they almost always had 4 or 5 transfers. And I think for me, I was just always at the kind of the end of my rope. I've got one to deal with here. And I tend to try to play a more aggressive style of fantasy. Yeah. And I think that not only did those moves not work, but I think it really left me, they have to work so well to overcome the advantage of having the ability to have transfers that allow you to plan for double game weeks, to plan for blanks, right? To plan for for injuries. It's just like it really is a significant advantage. And I think I actually underestimated how significant it would be to have those extra transfers.
Yeah, and the extra transfers, it's a mentality shift too, where so as long as we've been playing the game, you can always make as many transfers as you want, but there's something about the transfer penalty that does work its way into your strategy, and you're less inclined. I think the taking a -4 or a -8 promotes the strategy of patience. And this season, more than any that I remember recently, were really based on player form. If you look at like the switch from Haaland to Salah early in the season, mid-season form from Cunha and the likes of Cliver, like really random players like that, and then Jared Bowen finishing strong at the end of the season, your ability to those extra free transfers allowing you to just sort of free your mind to be like, I'm going to try to be more nimble and get in new players more frequently. Yep. So I like the idea of just banking a bunch of transfers early next season to free you up for that idea of being more nimble.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I the assistant manager chip, the other kind of big change. I mean, I don't know. I think I basically think all chips are like total junk. I don't really care for them, but I think that I guess you kind of need the chips. I don't know. It's like
we got some questions here in the chat. I'm looking at our YouTube where we are live, and Matt wants to know, do we like or dislike the assistant manager chip, and where you're kind of going with that. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you like it and want to see it again next season.
I still hold to what I say before, which is that I don't really think it's fantasy. Like it's to me, it's more like it's like gambling or something. It's like it doesn't quite feel like fantasy in this sort of traditional sense. So from that point of view, I don't love it. But I think as a kind of game, like where you just pick a manager and you get more points you get points for winning, you get points for how much they won by, or how many goals they scored. You get points for clean sheet, points for upsets. Like all that stuff is kind of fine. The implementation with the you had to burn transfers to switch managers. You had to use points to bring in the managers. That was just irritating to me because you couldn't not use the chip. It's like you had to deploy it, but it locked you in for 3 weeks. It just felt like it felt a little.
It goes against the spirit of the game, and like the FPL is I think at its best when it's a simple game and we're just making transfers. So I tend to agree. We got lots of love in the YouTube chat. Rune Sandberg, who I love Rune because whenever I post something on Patreon, he's the first person to like the post. Rune says, sad to see you go. Alex Roziski, pour one out for the cheaters. Homegrown FPL, all the best guys. I'm sad to see you go. We'll miss you guys from FPL Farm Assist. All the best. Dave Wags, wish you could be here, Dave. Dave says, better end with a montage. Clip show.
Yeah. Why isn't he here? He had to watch his dog this weekend. Right?
Okay, thanks, Dave. Thanks for showing support for the podcast. Pin sticker, thanks to both of you for many hours of insight and entertainment over the years. And it goes on, and we have been overwhelmed. Like, it's been really impossible to respond to everyone who's reached out over the last couple of weeks, and just remarkable. The community that's out there. So
what about any other changes? Like, I mean, what do you think about like just like big picture? Like, I know this has been a point of contention. I wouldn't say point of contention exactly, but like, like the rise of data and how much it's used and how many people are using these things. It's not, I mean, it sort of just like is aligned with like the kind of chat GPT-ification of like life right now, right? It's like, let me just plug in a question into this prompt and get an answer. And like, I mean, I use FPL Review. I subscribe to Miguel Talkbum's Patreon. Like, I'm not coming at this as a hater, but there is a part of me that's like, is there a way the game, you could still have a version of this game that would make it a little harder than just plugging in your transfer into an algorithm? I actually think having more transfers might do it if you had 2 a week or something. I don't know.
I am agnostic on this issue. I do not use data as a big part of my gameplay. It feels like this season went counter to the data heads. Like, whereas last season, I think the FPL optimized set actually fared better. I do think like season by season, it's going to be very hit or miss with this approach because this is why the Premier League as a league, or the just generally football is much beloved, is how chaotic and unpredictable it is. So numbers can tell you a lot, but you just they're not going to give you everything. I don't know, but then you got. So that's generally my feelings. I'm not spending too much time on it, and I'll be curious. Like in a decade from now, has data really won out? Then maybe we'll know. See, now I'm speaking like a quant, because I'm telling you, Josh, we don't have enough data to say if data works or not.
I think it does. I think it very clearly does. I mean, it's just I think it's the aggregation of it that it's just because it's not like the data is like pulling things that no one uses or refers to, right? It's the ability to pull expected goals data, expected assist data, team clean sheet information, and just pull it all together very quickly. And so I suppose there's really no change to the game you could make that would make it that would be like sort of algo proof, right?
Right. And if our friend Sertal were here, he would say this data is not meant to make the decision for you. The data is meant to help you make just a more broadly informed your own decision.
Right.
It's just one of the many tools that's at your disposal. So in that sense, it's basically like, look at Brentford and Brighton using data to help themselves IRL.
Right.
Everyone's using it. Get on board. I guess like coming back to FPL and the whole mantra of always cheating and making fantasy fun. I don't find it very fun data, honestly. Maybe because and that's a personal opinion. I respect that some people look at numbers as it's interesting. It's interesting to look at that and then see what story it tells you. For me personally, it doesn't charge me up the way it does trying to make an old-fashioned eye test. I sound like I sound like Roy Keane right now.
Well, I mean, I kind of thought that was the answer you'd give. I mean, I have mixed feelings about it too. I don't really know how to answer it. I will say that sort of gets, I think, a little bit to, one of the reasons I don't know. I mean, like if we can get into the pod stuff a little bit now, it's like sort of one of the reasons that I felt like the last couple of years, maybe we talked about those a little bit a couple of weeks ago. So forgive me if I'm repeating what I've said before, but I found it increasingly hard for us to, and again, this is not a complaint. This is just a like style thing. And I think there are people who are, I think you've got the kind of FML, FPL guys who are sort of like doing their own thing and kind of having fun with it. And then you've got the sort of full data, like we're going to grind the numbers here, right?
How do you make the right decision?
Yeah, exactly. And I think you and I always try to kind of have it both ways, be the sort of general pod, right? But part of doing the general pod stuff is to have the numbers be part of it too, right? We're not, we're in a gentle, fun, friendly way, but still part of it, right? But then I felt like as the numbers got increasingly important, right? Like looking at data, and sure, like maybe we always should have been doing this, right? Like there's probably a reason why. What's his name? Who's like the great
Billy Bean?
No, the great FPL manager. The guy from like Spain. Works for the gambling site. It's like,
right. I'm only thinking of the Argentinian novelist right now.
Fabio Borges. Yeah. So like the fact that he was able to have like, I'm not saying he cheated in any way, but like he just had access to advanced data that I'm sure was super helpful for making his decisions. And so I think maybe everyone's just maybe caught up on that front a little bit. But I think for me, it was like, I didn't really want to talk about that stuff. I found it kind of boring, but I felt like if we weren't talking about that stuff, so it's kind of what you were saying. It doesn't hold my attention either, but if we don't talk about it, it feels like we're missing a crucial part of how you should be playing if you really want to do well. And I think ultimately, even if you and I wanted the pod, whatever, to be sort of fun, like there needs to be an undercurrent. Like there's a reason we don't just talk about movies, right? There's got to be an undercurrent of like, you might actually get better at fantasy. Like even if it's not ever like fully fulfilled, there is a like kind of prescriptive quality to this. It's not a master class exactly, but like if you listen, it might make you a little more knowledgeable, a little better. But if being knowledgeable required talking about advanced stats all the time, I don't think I wanted to do that. And so I think that was part of, maybe it got a little dry. To talk about that stuff a little bit.
It's true. I feel like Always Cheating was always the best fit for listeners who were looking for somebody else to play FPL with, frankly. And the idea of not having to play FPL alone. All the messages of people who are like, I listen to the pod on my commute or while I'm walking the dogs, relatively solitary activities. And I feel like the conversations that we've had over the last 10 years feel like they are meant to be conversations that we're having that are also directed toward people out there who might not have somebody else to talk about FPL with. So then the conversation is not necessarily how do you win at FPL, or the conversation is not necessarily look into the specific conversation we're having. Right. It is how do we best provide a conversation that allows as many listeners as possible in to get something out of it, so they don't have to play FPL alone by themselves, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, I mean, in a lighter vein, but similar. I think it was just, I think people like listening to podcasts where people are friends with each other. Mm-hmm. I think in general, and I think of the podcasts that I still listen to, some of them are on things that I really don't care that much about anymore, like on topics that like don't totally get me like revved up, but I just enjoy hearing two friends talk to each other. Like I've been listening to the Bill Simmons, Cousin Sal, Guess the Lines pod for 10 plus years. Right. And like, they're not the sharp.
They beat us. They exceeded 10 years.
Exactly. But they're not the world's sharpest gamblers, right? Like I'm not sitting there with like a notepad in hand, like writing down their line guesses or their predictions or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But I just enjoy hearing these two friends joke with each other about the matches that happened that weekend, right? But Guess the Lines is the game they play to talk to each other, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think for us, FPL was the game we played to do that. Yeah. But at some point, I think we kind of, first of all, you do Guess the Lines with Bill does that with, I wasn't planning to talk about this, right? But like, just like now that I'm thinking about it, it's like,
it's a rich vein.
Well, but it's a 17-week. I mean, I guess if you include the playoffs, you're about 20 weeks, right? Like, but the fantasy season starts in July and ends in the end of May, right? It's like and so we're kind of, it's like imagine Guess the Lines, but it's twice a week for 42
we're
weeks. We're
different people at the end of the season that we were at the start of the season. No joke.
Grumpier. Yeah, exactly.
You just realized that you needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Just go to Indeed.com/BWN right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
So I'm not feeling very grumpy right now, but I think, so I think like I'm not feeling sentimental about the end of the pod right now because we basically decided in like November that we were probably going to be done. And I think, and so I spent kind of 6 months mourning it in the background, the end of the pod. And so I don't feel, right now, I don't feel like I'm, sort of, I don't know how I'm feeling, but I did want to talk a little bit about just like think back on for anyone who's interested, think back on like the history of the podcast a little bit. And
it began, as you say, of like Sal and Bill Simmons talking, and here's a game that we can use to channel a conversation. Yeah, you and I both moved to New York City the same summer of 2005, and we were both interested in podcasts. We were just listening to the quintessential two guys, one mic, no topic podcast. And we
Jordan, Jesse, go.
That was the one.
Yeah.
And so, we were young kids in New York, and everyone looking for a side hustle. We decided to make a podcast of our own, and it was one microphone and no topic. And we would get together once a month to be like, I don't know, I have a story about bowling with my grandmother. That could be kind of interesting. And you could tell as
I don't remember that story.
The story goes is I must have been like 10 years old. My brother's 3 years older than me. We went to the bowling alley with my grandma and grandpa, and my grandmother takes me aside and says, "Why can't you bowl like your brother?" And I had no idea what to do with that in that situation.
Yeah, it's a tough spot.
Frankly, because I wasn't interested in bowling. But, there are lots of questions like, why can't I bowl?
I feel like you turned into a competent bowler, though.
Yeah. And that is all thanks to Grandma Mildred Kelly. Bless you, wherever you may be.
Yeah.
So as the months went by, nobody was listening to this. And we'd get together to record it. And you could tell we kind of like, without talking about it, dreaded recording it because it was just kind of a bit performative.
You mean like this year or like what?
No, this old podcast.
Oh, the old podcast.
This old podcast in the Wheelhouse. It was called. You can't find it anywhere. Don't worry about it. And what we would end up doing instead, as a way of postponing hitting record, was we would talk about our fantasy teams.
That's true.
So,
then we didn't go quite into always cheating because we had a pod in the middle.
Yep.
The also forgotten Crosstown Derby, which was I guess the idea was it was a weekly podcast. I don't know how we thought we'd keep this going because there's not that many derbies out there, but we were going to talk about a derby, like a rivalry match between two clubs. And we would give a little bit of history and talk about key players. It was actually kind of a neat idea for a podcast. Yeah. I mean, if we had like done it as a spinoff from this show and it had been like a Wednesday, like movie mindset style, like its own little Patreon thing, like it probably would have been fun. But I think, anyway, but we did it first and we kind of we did it for a while, but it didn't feel like it had the momentum. And I think in general, if I were to like give advice to, and actually because I've done this before, I put together a PowerPoint, like I guess I did in Canva, but I did like a slide deck for a presentation that I would give at what's that college that the one in by Lincoln Center, Fordham. At Fordham, at Fordham University, Brendan, I gave some brief lectures on not in fantasy, but just on podcasts and creating podcasts.
The Landon papers.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the pieces of advice in there was, you got to think about like whether you can keep this thing going, because getting a podcast off the ground is surprisingly difficult, right? I mean, the barrier to entry is very low, and so it seems easy, but it's only easy up until the time you actually hit play on the microphone, right? And then you're like, oh my God, like, what am I supposed to say? How long am I supposed to go for? And then most importantly, how am I going to get anybody to listen, right? And so maybe Crosstown Derby could have been a huge success if we had, found thousands and thousands of people. But the problem is nobody wants to listen to a podcast that's just two guys that don't work for, like, we're not Jonathan Wilson, right? We're not football historians. No. We're not Guardian writers. We were just two guys who like
aggregating Wikipedia articles and other stuff.
Hey, don't knock aggregation. It's a key part of the modern internet. But it felt like we weren't we just couldn't build an audience, right? And I think in general, this is like free advice, although it's very obvious maybe to some people out there. But if people feel like you can solve a problem for them, right? It's a lot easier to get people engaged and sort of listening to you. Yeah. Now, you don't need to have people sometimes the problem is I want to be entertained, right? But that's fine as long as you're incredibly entertaining, right? And that's a pretty high bar. That is not the most common of not everyone is wildly entertaining. It's a high bar, and so and we are intermittently entertaining, right? And so but if you have the spine of the fantasy stuff, you're able to kind of keep it going. And I think
which is a constantly replenishing resource, which is great.
Exactly. But I do think it got to the point where it started to feel a little restrictive, and but it also never felt appropriate to be like, okay, starting next week, we're only going to talk about fantasy for 15 minutes, right? And the rest of the time we're going to talk about just the games we watched and then maybe like a movie we saw last weekend or whatever. Like that was sort of something that in my head would be more fun, you know, but you can't do that. You can't do that for your audience. It's not fair. Like if Mark Maron just started doing stand up on his podcast instead of the interviews that people came there for, like it would not be appropriate. People would leave. It wouldn't be a fit.
I'm reminded of Crosstown Derby. You were, when we stopped in the Wheelhouse, you were insistent on, we need a project.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, we can do Crosstown Derby, but you have to do all the work. And I made you record all the episodes, post everything, which you gladly did.
Yeah.
And as it kind of petered out, we had started a friend FPL mini league called Always Cheating because we really loved that chant that we would occasionally hear on the broadcast.
Yeah.
And I became so consumed with sort of commissioning this mini league that I went ahead and bought the domain alwayscheating.com. And I actually started posting little mini podcasts to that by myself. Which like nobody wanted. People like actively would ask me to stop doing it. But I would like invite people from them. It was meant to be kind of like a commissioner running a fantasy league on steroids. Like I could do like weekly podcasts with people in the league.
You also wanted to see if you could do without me, you know, if you could, get it going without.
So ultimately, I think it was at the Four Faced Liar in the West Village. We kind of had this, you were always just kind of making the plea of like, we are good at projects. Let's do it. This could be a project. And we started Always Cheating. And what only astute listeners who go back to the first few episodes will remember is when we started, it would start with me saying, welcome to the Always Cheating podcast.
Right.
And we would get stuck in every episode. It just would be grinding for like the first couple of minutes until you started kicking off the episode.
Right.
And somehow it was you saying, welcome to the podcast, Brandon, how are you? That somehow it became easier. And I can't really explain why it is that way, but it just is.
I think it's, I think a good podcast has to have a, like a kind of relationship, right? Like a kind of, you have to like, it's like someone's kind of driving and someone's in the passenger seat, I think, like, or and sometimes you have three people in the passenger seat, right? But you kind of need somebody that's like, I think like that's kind of like the host, right? Like even like podcasts like the Flophouse, like Dan is kind of the host, right? Even though he's not necessarily the most beloved member of that podcast, but he's the one who sort of he makes sure everything is kind of hit on the podcast. All the right notes are hit. Everything is described appropriately, right? And I think for me, I was just always more comfortable jumping around to different spots, like jumping to like, all right, let's move on to this now. Let's move on to that. And without feeling like we had to be too completist about certain things, And I think, maybe, I don't know. I feel like maybe you felt like you wanted to stick to the order a little more, whereas I like a little more kind of improvisation.
I'm very much my father's son, where it's the old adage of measure twice, cut once. And my dad was, go ahead and measure 500 times.
Let's make sure
you cut later.
Let's make sure you've measured it correctly. Yeah.
So somehow we found a rhythm that worked, and then it really was. A lot of people listening will know Nick Trigger Lips. He had a blog. He had a blog called The Transfer Algorithm, which is more or less a Facebook group. And that getting in on that, and Nick sharing our podcast with that group is what really launched us. And I do like talking about like our division of labor, which we found a really good balance over the years, is you, Josh, like you love winning. Like then that is probably the biggest trait that you have brought to Always Cheating over the last decade. And that way,
like being like sort of competitive, like just like overly competitive, perhaps.
And that comes from that plays into playing FPL, but also just us running a small business. And you're like, let's have more listeners, let's get social accounts going. And I was thinking about like the trajectory of the podcast over the decade, and it like dawned on me Oh, yeah. Remember in 2019? I was thinking about your winning mentality. Remember in 2019 where we actually won an award for having the best fantasy Premier League podcast, and which is right over our shoulder.
Yeah.
So the haters will hate, but listen, always cheating when we fade away. Never forget. We won.
Yeah, that's on something. Yeah, exactly. In the first one too, I think it was the first fantasy award they gave out. So I always
wasn't it before us? It was the who were those guys that
the Gaffer Tapes.
The Gaffer Tapes won it before us.
Fine.
Yeah.
All right, they won it before us, but we won it second. Still good. Still silver.
Yeah, we talked about this when we made our announcement a couple of weeks ago. There is now just like a sea of FPL content and a lot of great FPL content. So I'm not trying to say like we did it best and no one will ever do it better. No, it's just it's a different landscape, and I'm excited to consume FPL content on YouTube and by a podcast done by really great content creators.
Do we want to talk about anything else? I mean, didn't you say you had some notes or something?
I did. I feel like I've kind of like peppered my notes into this conversation. Yeah, I was just sitting alone like a week ago, and I was like, I should put some thoughts down in my notes app of things that I want to remember. I mean, the most sentimental thought I had was some people have asked, like, do you have a favorite episode of the podcast or a favorite moment? And when we went to London in right before COVID. So we were there in March of 2020, had a great meetup at Coin Laundry. Some of you would have been there. And we saw the Manchester Derby where Scott McTominay, Napoli legend, scored a goal. And we saw the final match before the league shut down, which is Leicester-Aston Villa. At that meetup at Coin Laundry in London, we had like more than 100 people in this basement of a bar. And we had hired a videographer to record people and their thoughts about the podcast. And we had also recorded some content of the two of us talking directly to camera, basically doing a little sales pitch. Yeah. But the video I think about the most is this video the videographer edited together of all people who weren't us. Yeah. Talking about what they really loved about the podcast. And I was like, yeah, these people, I relate to them. They are just like me. And that was kind of, profound is putting it strongly. But I think that's what I've really enjoyed the most about Always Cheating is getting to be communicating with people who are just like me in their way.
I would say when I think back in like fun memories, let me wrap this up here. I think I remember. We've only gone for like 30 minutes. I think about a little longer, I guess. I think about our first UK trip, which was an amazing trip. We saw four games in 4 days, and Chelsea, Europa League, went to Brighton, had to wait forever to get to the queues, man, English queues. Yeah. It's and
you're holding your bladder the entire time.
Yeah, in America, we just have hundreds of entrances. It's really the way to do it. Every stadium has like 50 entrances. It's really, I advise it. But that's my unsolicited take there on stadiums. But in general, I actually love going to English stadiums. We've had amazing experiences. And yeah, if you had to name, so we've gone on 3 trips to the UK. We've seen, I guess, a total of 11 matches across those trips. I have the scarves to prove it, and so that's been a lot of fun.
You're the swag king.
Yeah. What's your favorite match, or your favorite stadium that we've been to?
Watching a attendant actually press Tim Ream's name onto a Fulham kit not in the gift shop, but like basically next to where they were selling beers and pies in Craven Cottage. It was so small.
That was cool.
It's widely known how quaint Craven Cottage was.
It's a stunningly beautiful day, too.
Yes, beautiful sunshine pouring down, taking my picture in front of the Johnny Haynes statue, and then just getting absolutely vaporized and torched by Arsenal in one of the great Arsenal goals scored by Aaron Ramsey.
Aubameyang had a brace, I think, that day. Although Fulham did score a goal.
It was Schürrle, Andreas Schürrle.
Yeah, it was maybe the only goal he scored for Fulham.
I mean, I think the best match that we saw was Chelsea, Man City last season.
The 4-4.
Which was just like a goal fest and so fun. And the home and away were just like equally into it. It was fantastic.
I'd say the best. Well, I've talked about my favorite kind of my favorite match day experience was probably at the Emirates. I thought it was really like white glove.
They did
really
hospitality very well.
Yeah, it was.
The realization that I have to go to the bathroom, and they're like, "Sir, the bathroom is right here."
Free alcohol. It was amazing. It was really ridiculous. So that was great. And as far as ambiance, I thought that the King Power is probably my favorite ambiance. I love the family atmosphere. I mean, we saw Manchester Derby, and the ambiance is pretty awesome at that too.
The fear of the entire structure collapsing beneath our feet was real.
It feels rickety, like an old wooden roller coaster. But it has it's still standing for now. Yeah. I mean, the gift shop will survive the apocalypse. I mean, that thing is made out of solid plutonium or something. I don't really know. Yeah, it's very, very powerful stuff. But the actual stadium feels like it could use some work.
Yeah, and that was
not nagging on it. It was cool.
The betting window was very old timey at Old Trafford. We just got the betting sheet.
We had no idea what we were doing with that. Yeah. So that was fun. The first meetup we had was awesome too. We met a ton of people. Tom Cancel, remember he took us around the city. Who got the assist? That was really fun. And
I think we can do this because we're signing off, so Tom can't come for us. But I remember that walk that Tom took us on, which was beautiful, and we saw a bit of the Thames or the Thames. And ended up at a wine bar, and I was like, "Oh, this was a nice little walk, Tom." And he's like, "Yeah, it's my rehearsed walk for all of my first dates." I believe Tom is now married with child and living a happy life, and doesn't have to take that walk now unless he's taking his family on that walk.
All the photos you and I have from that day, it looks like you and I have gone on a date with each other.
Yeah, our engagement.
They're our engagement photos. We both dressed very nicely for some reason for that. We both have nice collared shirts on. I had this beautiful green sweater that unfortunately it got moth-eaten. It's very
Before
sad.
we met up with Tom, or maybe it was with Tom, where we got the tour of Lloyd's of London.
That was with Tom. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
I was like, what is the most random thing you could incorporate into an FPL trip to the UK? Maybe a tour of the offices of Lloyd's of London.
Exactly. It was all just fun, and it was and I think this is the reason that it's fun to start a project and a project like this that maybe has people that will listen or watch, because I think it's just fun to open doors. And it's not like it opened the doors to millions and millions of dollars. And it was just, but it just sort of opened up fun opportunities and chances to meet people and do silly, goofy stuff that you wouldn't have necessarily known about. It's like the way people who do an open mic night or something like that. They're like, well, I don't think I'm going to be a famous comedian, but I got to meet other funny people and it was fun to hang out. Maybe you make more friends and you get invited to more stuff, right? It's the same thing with this. It was it was just a neat way to I don't want to say network, right? Because that's not, it wasn't, the goal was never to turn this into a career, but it was it created it created a network, but just not in the linking it like LinkedIn messages to people you don't know way, but more like a network and a kind of a web, or something. I don't know, just
the idea, Josh, that you're not playing FPL alone.
It's a popular idea. It's a nice idea.
A couple of other messages in the YouTube chat. Sebastian Frost, thank you so much, Brandon and Josh, for the many years of entertainment you have brought us during lockdown. I used to wander the streets of London whilst my son was in hospital, listening to you both.
Wow.
The way you combine popular culture, trivia, etc., related to FPL is something no one else has done. Made you guys really entertaining. Stu Bruce, I still use the "got that dog in him" metric.
Yeah.
Sponsored by a hit movie Strays, which is still in theaters, actually. It's incredible run.
I think Redbox now has exclusive rights to that.
Thanks again for those. Got that dog in him. I mean, obviously, Bus Team will be part in our eulogy. Pure Watch is not something we really dwell on too much anymore, but that was a big thing for always cheating for a long time. It's part
of the lexicon for sure. Yeah. Bus Team, Pure Watch. I guess Bus Team will be our lasting contribution. A little joke that that grew, but yeah, I just
there was
think
clearly a need for that tournament.
That term, exactly. And like the love of Alexander Sorloth and Mercy and Bacani before him, and Sam Vokes, the Volkswagen.
Alexander Sorloth, who this weekend became, I think, the first substitute, the first player in La Liga to come off the bench for 10 plus goals in a season. Huh. So the Sorloth legend continues on.
That's wonderful stuff. So, and I think, but hopefully, we keep in touch with people. And I think that we will. It was good, seeing all these people at the Black Horse today and people on the Discord that we've sort of met and who honestly contribute more to the Discord than we do at this point. I feel like they're certainly going to keep this thing alive. The Francis Mann types, right? Who sort of create these mini leagues and, these little worlds.
Yeah, well, the Discord, if all goes according to plan, will live on, and there will be a little enclave of always cheaters out there. If for whatever reason it all dissipates and the listenership, go their separate ways, I just hope that everyone takes a little bit of always cheating with them on their journey.
Yeah.
And so it's like, there's this idea that, first of all, we had to get over the worry of, if I reveal to a person I've just met that I have a podcast, is that going to make me seem like a nerd? Mm-hmm. Get over that fear and sort of embrace the fact that you have this successful project.
Sure.
Similarly, for people who play fantasy sports or FPL, there can be, for some people, this stigma of like, oh, it's a game that is maybe, how mature am I if I pour so much time into FPL? And I just feel like FPL has opened up so many conversations with so many new people that have been productive and wonderful, and it is, it's proof that being able to talk to people is really healthy. Being able to be open about what you're interested in and what you're passionate about is a good thing, no matter what it is. So I do want to just think about that as I go on.
Well, maybe when you join this curling league and
I can tell them how I'm really getting into some of the dark web, and I'm really passionate about 3D guns now.
Yeah. I mean, hey, listen, I bought a guitar, literally, no joke. So I'm embracing my. They have the Queen passing during our meetup in Brooklyn. Honestly, I have to say, and it's got a funny note to end on, but that was our friend Dave Wags reminded me of that. That was honestly possibly the it feels like a weird way to end on, but that was kind of the end of the pod for us.
It was a bit of a backbreaker because we had put a lot of work into getting that event set up, just you and me.
Yep.
And
it's like a lot of these things, you want to you want to do it, and you want it to be fun, and you don't want anybody to see you sweat, right? But then when it doesn't go off the way you want, you're like, oh my.
And we were just undercut in the most sort of cold, brutal possible way. All due respect to the Queen.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I get why they postponed the matches, but it was just selfishly, it was tough.
Because that was that season. We were kind of we're having this huge ticketed meetup event. I think we had
gone to Vegas that summer.
We had gone to Vegas and done some shows in the Blue Wire studio at the Wynn Casino, and we felt like this is we're doing all the right things to level up. Yeah. And for whatever reason, we didn't fully level up that season to the point where it made us feel like we were keep continuing that velocity of growth.
You talked about winning. I think for me, and one of the reasons I guess that it feels like it's the right time to stop and let people who are more lots of people there's a lot of fantasy concepts that they're doing great work that Planet FPL, right? People who are really highly engaged, people who are great on YouTube, right? Mm-hmm. Innumerable people are really good on YouTube, and which neither of us are super passionate about growing in that. Mm-hmm. And that. Not that I have no problem with YouTube. It's just not. We sort of come from the podcast world, right? And so it's just where we're still more comfortable. And I think that it's if you're not growing, then for me, it's that's when it's time to do something else. It's and maybe that's just this inner capitalist streak or something like that. Mm-hmm. But just that feeling or change, evolve, right? Mm-hmm. It's I just don't want to ever do the same thing all the time, right? And I think it's I want to keep and at some point it felt like we weren't really growing or evolving. And I think that's when it was like, okay, maybe it's time, I don't know, not to be all dramatic about it, but you just had those moments where, well, you only get one life, it's like, all right, let's move on.
We have become Trent Alexander-Arnold. Where,
exactly.
This always cheating is our Liverpool, and it's time for us to, I wish there was like a paycheck waiting for me at the other end of this in Spain, no less. But you take my point.
But we've done fine. Like everything is good. And it's funny that we were joking about how like everyone at the meetup today, it's like the people who listen to this podcast, like their annual salary. It's like, I don't know why. It's like we are the business person's podcast of choice. It's crazy when people work in finance or business of some sort. Anyway, all right. Well, thanks so much everyone for listening. Brendan, why don't we do one final shout out to all of our producer patrons?
I love it. Yeah, and it would be great to just like go poll every producer throughout our run, but our present producers who will get the final say, and really underscoring the OG Mike DePietro, who was our first Patreon supporter. Yeah. And so much love to Mike, Trevor Ingerson. I could say much love to all of these people, so I'll stop. Trevor Ingerson, Dave Wagner-Lodahl, our buddy Chris Howell, Andy Penn, Nick Wright, Lazarus Llanos, Jesse Halstead, Brian Chin, Babas Kuhn, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons, Terrence O'Donnell. Are you waiting for me to cry reading these producer names?
No, actually, I was thinking about a story that someone told me a few days ago about. For some reason, they were listening to the end of the podcast, and they said they usually stop listening right at the time when the producers get read off, and that it was like for some reason it was like they were at the dentist when they didn't have access to their phone. And so they got to the end of this podcast and they had to hear the producer read that they always skipped at the end.
They're like, this is insane.
But then it cycled back to all of the old unlistened, like all the old podcasts they playlist. So they had to hear like 30 minutes of you just reading off thank yous to producer patrons.
Yeah. Long may that, Ray. Carrie Swanson, Jefferson Turner, as he does it, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Craig Jackson, Caleb Robbie, Brian Clark, Thomas Tislov, Fred Jacobson, Gareth H., Shalin F. Kadakia, Rishi Nagam, Noah and Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Fenderstrom, Matthew Skinner, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Rune Sandberg, the three Jims, James Murray Wood, James C., James Holland, Scully, Craig at Total Mass Tutoring. I'll miss you the most, Craig. And also the indefatigable Francis Mann. We love you. Go ahead and rate and review. It won't do us any good. But it's an action that you can take.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess we're still going to be on the Blue Wire network.
Yeah, we're parking the RSS feed. Yeah,
we'll get $8 a month from old listeners.
It's a good note. Like, don't unfollow us. The RSS feed is going to get parked somewhere. You never know when it will be if or when it will be reawakened. And you will be notified if you stay subscribed, and that's a good thing because you just never know.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks everyone once again. Sincerely, this has been a very long thank you now, but thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye, guys.